They are the things that he kept, so he valued them. And they're the things that are left behind besides the films themselves to tell us who he was.
You know, as you were traveling around the country as an auto mechanic, what was it about the motion picture industry that appealed to you?
The shooting gallery that they had in 30-foot storefronts, I used to spend my lunch hours in there watching them. Jesus, I'd like to do that. And it started with that.
He grew up in Knoxville. His parents had come here from New England, and so they were not native to this area. They were hired to come here for Brookside Mills. His teen years and his college life were here. Graduated from Knoxville High School. And he graduated from the university as an engineer and spent a little bit of time in the automobile business and ended up in filmmaking.
I picked out the man I wanted to work for, and I went up to Fort Lee, New Jersey, and got the job. To show you how much I know about pictures, I butted right into him while he was taking a scene.
He is, in a sense, representative of a time in Hollywood, that time in the history of those studios, the great studios.
We built our own stars. We brought them in as punks with no experience at all. We put them in school. We gave them little bits to do in pictures, and you can tell almost that quick whether they got it or they haven't. So we concentrated on those people and built them up from nothing.
What were Joan Crawford and Garbo really like?
Well, that's a long question. Crawford was more earthy than Garbo. I couldn't compare the two, and yet I had good success with both of them.
The Tennessee football team went to the Rose Bowl, and so he hosted them and showed them around MGM, and there are pictures of football players from here with MGM starlets. So his relationship with the university is not something that had lapsed, if you will. There were little moments over the years that it kind of came into play.
In Nashville was the day after Valentine's Day, and Charmin, the kid, was taking down the Valentines to put them away for next year. Had the teacher bring Claude over to me, and I talked to him, and I told him I was a scout for the University of Tennessee football clique, and we wanted to start him young, and that's the way I started with Jody.
We had Vice President for Development who opened the dialogue with him because he was an alumnus of the university, and really was responsible for securing the gift of all of his papers, his library, and then of course the considerable monetary gift. And this was over a long period of time.
Everyone loved the idea of a new theater. We needed the new facility, so everyone was excited.
There's pictures of Mr. Brown with university officials, and you can sort of see that it was a neighborhood. There was a street that ran right through where the theater sits.
The opening was quite a big deal. There were lots of dignitaries, the governor, the mayor, Clarence and Marion Brown. And of course, I was just one of the spectators, but I loved it.
In 2000, we decided that we should install a permanent or semi-permanent exhibit in the display cases in the lobby. So we went to the university archives and collected some of those items and created that display from those.
We have several collections of his papers and photographs, stills from the films, and shooting scripts. There is comparatively little correspondence in the collections. He was reticent and protected his friendships that way. I know, for example, that he and Garbo were lifelong friends. One can intuit that one of the ways he remained friends with people like her, whose privacy was tremendously important to them, was that he did not retain a paper trail of that relationship. I don't know if he destroyed letters. I imagine they were destroyed at some point, but he did not make them available. And I think, although we would all love to have those things, you respect that, you know. And again, their absence is informative. But very often, other things, like their libraries frequently, tell you a great deal about them because you think of him as a filmmaker, for example. But the fact that he was a flyer, that he owned his own plane and he had books on aviation, the fact that there's quite a bit about architecture in the collection, the fact that he was terribly interested in human sexuality as people understood it in the early mid-20th century is interesting. It's also fascinating to realize that he had very nice editions of wonderful children's classics in his collection. All of that's going to tell you things about him as a person that you'll never glean from his papers.
When Mr. Brown passed away, a portion of his estate was left in trust to the University of Tennessee and the Clarence Brown Theater. After Mrs. Brown passed away, she was quite a bit younger than Mr. Brown. Then the university actually received the funds, and it was, at that time, $12.5 million, which at that time was the largest single gift the university had received.
The endowment that Clarence and Marion Brown left enabled us to expand programs for students. We can bring in professional people to do workshops, to act in plays along with our students. That's probably the greatest legacy that the endowment left us.
I think it's important that the document of someone like him survives so that we can not just understand him particularly well, but also understand the world in which he operated and filmmaking during that time.
We were riding along on a straight line. The pictures had got to a certain value. They weren't getting any better, they weren't getting any worse, and talking pictures came out. It gave us a new something all around.
You were definitely her favorite, there's no question about it.
Well, I won't say that, but I made more pictures with her than anybody else, and I'm still her friend. I never embarrassed her in front of another actor or another person. Never. Everything that ever went on between Garbo and myself was done in complete secrecy, whispers on the side of the set.